Thanks a lot, Earl. I appreciate the introduction here. I'm just going to be talking a little bit about my history. My background is financial planning for about coming up to 30 years now. It originally started with the basic insurance for 3 years and then mutual funds. And from 1987, coming into the industry at the worst time, Black Monday, um, I learned to go through four of the economic corrections. 1987, Black Monday Day, well known as. Then there was 1991, which was the Falkland Island Wars, and it was a lot of hostility in the States with Reagan around. Then we saw another immersion of major explosive growth in the equity markets in the 90s. Anything that you close your eyes and throw a dart, everything was going up. And I rode that wave up nicely, raised about $5 million in mutual funds for investors in that decade. Also started to get acquainted with some of the private investments like limited partnerships, real estate investment trusts. Also, we did a lot of creative stuff with that. Foreclosures in Phoenix, Arizona, bought 11 apartment complexes in there for investors, and our investors doubled their money there in the late 80s. So that was, the late 90s, and that was around the time Reagan deregulated the federal loan savings and loans banks, and they created resolution trusts. And what I noticed over the last 40 years, since I was a kid, my dad was in the mineral engineering mining industry, and he had a lot of stockbrokers working for him and underwriting offerings, and he became one of the 10th richest men in Canada in 1967. I had noticed these 40 years there was always a correction every 10 years, 1970 and 1980 and 1990, and then again 2000 and the Y2K .com bubble. The cyclical market of the equity stock market was getting really frustrating for me because I wasn't able to keep happy clients and stabilize, predictable or sustainable returns that were, people would come in and come out. But going into real estate was a whole different game because I started to recognize values and valuations and buying properties in the 2000s. 2002 to 2007, I purchased 24 homes, mostly like through just finding a good property, getting it under contract, and then going around and talking to 3 or 4 investors to see if they would be interested in buying a property. And typical conversation would be like, I got a $300,000 property, we can buy for about 250, or we got a 350,000 property, we could buy for 290. And or maybe even a 400,000 property we can buy for 300, and we would then get these homes. I would then spend probably 6 months a year for about 10 years restoring these homes, getting basement suites in them and renting them out. And what I discovered was real estate became an obvious higher return, more predictable, more controllable asset. We own the land, we own the building, and we can control the tenancy and the inside. And we made about $1 million in profits from 2002 to 2007. It was more like $1.5 million, but after the meltdown in 2008, 9, 10, and 11, there was a bit of a retraction on the growth and the profits. So we still netted out $1 million. Not a lot, but I started recognizing after about 10,000 open houses and talking about 10,000 people over that 6 years of open houses every weekend for 6 years, how to identify good tenants and how to offer homes on a lease to purchase or rent to own. So that became my core business. And then now moving into Alberta from moving out of Alberta in 93 and then coming back to Alberta in 2012, 20 years later, recognizing the massive growth in the Alberta economy, it was very evident that I needed to be back in Alberta where the jobs were being created in the oil field and that. So after raising money for oil and gas in 2009 and 10, and which got me down this rabbit hole of discovering land and values on land for oil. And southeast Saskatchewan, where they're drilling in the fields where they've known that the oil has been there for 50 years. But the new technology of hydrofracking, and again, my background, my father being a mineral engineer, I had the education to take my technical schooling at NAIT and becoming a hard rock geologist in that field. And I had the choice to go with the soft rock, which was petroleum. I went down the hard rock channel, but then discovered full circle after 25 years that obviously oil was probably a better venture. And then deciding that I was still, good 20 years of my career left, I decided to put my work boots on again, because I spent 4 years in mineral engineering and then technology as a geological technician, exploration for gold with ESSO. Then I decided to get my work boots on and get into the oil field and the geology of discovering where the oils were in the lands. Southeast Saskatchewan, northern Alberta, the tar sands, and then you have the gas fields in north west of Alberta and into BC, where you got Fort St. John and Dawson Creek in that area, where there's the largest gas field in the world collectively, with the two deposits in the Montney Shale, from which is basically a formation the size of Lake Superior from Grand Prairie up north to Fort Nelson. That's underground. They're discovering massive amounts of condensate that is assisting in creating a better flowing fuel from the tar sands and the heavy crude. And then there's the gas fields collectively with the Montney Shale in the northern BC. They call it the gas fields up there, and there's a lot of oil up there too. It's so big, and you add that to the northern pond or pool or lake of gas, which is north of that, most of the Northwest Territories. It's called the Horn River Basin. And so you've got these 4 or 3 pockets of natural resources that likely is about 25% to 30% of the oil reserves in the world are sitting under Alberta lands. And now with the clean energy movement with the gas fields, what I discovered was that there was a massive revolution, if not a renaissance, of extraction taking place with new technologies. And having promoted for oil and gas in all of 2009 and 10, I decided that this was the field to be in, and the field to be in was the assistance of extraction of the oil and gas from the ground through the new technologies of hydrofracking, and also horizontal drilling was the big play, because before most wells were typically vertical, but now they've gone horizontal, and they go up to as long as 2 or 3 kilometers long. So you could drill down and then leg off and go out like a spoke of a wheel, and you could have 5 or 6, 7 legs, 8 legs, 10 legs on the same horizon. And then they hydrofrack in those zones, and they pull anywhere from 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 barrels a day from that one wellhead, and producing like millions of dollars, millions of barrels of oil a year, and if not multi-season millions of dollars per month, and if not per day. Some of the wells that I've learned about that were dead holes have been re-stimulated and are producing massive resources. And for every one job created in the oil field, there's 10 jobs created in the actual major cities. So we see a lot of growth happening in this area here in resources, and the need for resources in China. So again, basically going full circle went into blue collar hard rock geology, then white collar financial planning 25 years, and then going blue collar back into the field for the last 3 years, learning about the petrochemical, petroleum, oil and gas, well services industry, and getting right in there and learning how to run the equipment and pull the resources out of the ground. So this picture, the first picture, is me doing a presentation on how and why people need to really understand not just the technical aspects of where the resources are and where the new money system is, but how the the function of how to compound your worth and how to shelter your income and assets from taxations, because that's really the whole point of the conversation, is to learn how to save money, but also with a good income, get some tax deduction and shelter the growth of that money in a lower tax environment, if not a tax-free environment. Now with the new tax-free savings accounts, these are really a great way to do. So basically, how would shift money go from tax now, tax later, tax lower to tax never, and that's a whole exercise into itself. So I coming into the field again with my blue jeans and steel toe boots and the coverall thing, that was like a big step for me. 50 years old, I'm going to start my life over again. Felt like I was standing on glass ceiling. Glass. This is a picture of me standing on the glass in the Calgary Tower, looking down. I'm going to restart my life here again. So that was in 2011, and in 2012 and 13, I was, realizing that I just had to do one thing at a time and venture out into a new career, which was the oil field, oil services, and I just discovered it to be a very, very enjoyable job, and also now being able to bounce from that to going back into marketing, promoting for investments and opportunities to help people with tax savings and investing in this field, in this narrow field of oil and gas, energy sector, and real estate investments. Take advantage of the opportunities that are going on here. So fear defeats more people than any other one thing in the world, and I knew that if I just took action, I would evaporate the fear. So I moved myself to the center of the universe, which is Red Deer, and just lived north of there in a little town called Black Falls. And again, born and raised in Edmonton, moved to BC for 10 years, or 20 years rather, and then because I spent 10 years in Kelowna and 10 years in Vancouver, and come back here to the real economy. So I did a little test marketing back about 2 years ago, and just to get a gauge of what kind of response I would get. So I put up the sign here right by this Tim Hortons: rent to buy, no qualifying, move in today. My phone number and website, liveforfree.ca. Now that since recently I just put that website to sleep, but I'm going to be resurrecting that again. But I have a great website that will talk about how does live for free work and all that. But this sign by the Tim Hortons back 2 years ago was an amazing reception. I had 60 people call me in a period of a day and a half after having put the sign up. Needless to say, the owner of the Tim Hortons took the sign down, but it was amazing. I actually had 5 buyers for homes within a day of the sign, putting the sign up. So I knew that there was a huge demand for housing in where I had relocated to, and where I came from, Kelowna, it just wasn't there. I mean, I was getting crushed there for 3 years, and I realized that I had to get out of that economy because it was a dying and declining economy. But again, with internet, websites, and all kinds of cool stuff that I employed, starting to realize a new economy had emerged. You can run your business from a cell phone, and you didn't really need an office anymore. Websites were the way, so I built a great website for my business. And now, looking at the big picture, fundamentals is supply and demand. So you have a lot of people, first and foremost, moving to Alberta. There's what we call interprovincial migration, and then we have people or foreigners that are coming in. Then there's a bit of a moratorium on these foreigners coming into, the Filipinos were running the Tim Hortons and the Denny's and all these major restaurants and hotels. That foreign immigration they're putting a little bit of a stop to it, and they're trying to internally grow the economy with domestic employees. So, but there is yet a wave coming, and the wave is huge. The wave of people coming to Alberta is massive, 100,000 people a year. Going back to this, again, growth and demand chart, you have gross domestic product, which is the supply and demands needs of what we got in Alberta, the rocks and the sticks, the resources, the oil, the gas, the potash, the manufacturing sector is just exploding with growth and desire and demand. Then you have the job growth. People are being recruited from all over the world to come to Alberta to work in this massive industrial growth because of the demand that the Pacific Rim and Asia has for our resources here. Not to mention the United States has been about 80% of our export going there, has created just insatiable demand for our resources here. And again, with the hydro fracking technology and the hydro, horizontal drilling plays that are going on in the shales, the United States is starting to turn the corner. They're creating their own microeconomy, macroeconomy in the States, and becoming actually becoming now soon to be an exporter of oil versus being an importer of oil and gas from Saudi Arabia and all the other countries. Now, the GDP growth is just very evident. There's been a slow recovery since 2008 after that massive correction. Then you do see where people are migrating to is where the jobs are, and so the population is increasing. And we've just seen in the last 2 years rental increases going up 30-40%. Noticed these pockets, for example, Grand Prairie rent rates are up 40-50%. 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom apartments going from 800 to 1,000 now, or like 1,200 to 1,500 a month. Case in point, where I live, the townhomes are renting for about 900 to 1,000 a month. They're about 1,400 a month right now in a small little town. And for Saskatchewan, another great indicator. I met one of my renters who rents a room from me. He was paying $800 a month for a basement bedroom in Fort Saskatchewan, and the lady had 3 bedrooms in a basement. So she was making like $2,400 a month for a basement, renting bedrooms in a basement in Fort Saskatchewan. She had 3 homes there and 4 or 5 homes in Fort McMurray. And her full-time living is just from renting bedrooms to the oil services, oil field workers. So there's a massive demand for housing. As a matter of fact, there's a housing crisis in Alberta, because of the floods. There was a 0 vacancy rate in Calgary. Just in the last year, there's a 0.9% vacancy rate in Red Deer, and there's more building permits that were issued in the small little town of Black Falls because it's the kind of the only way to grow out of Red Deer. And you see the small peripheral towns like Okotoks or Airdrie. These are towns surrounding Calgary, where you see towns like Devon or Nisku or Leduc around Edmonton. You see Fort Saskatchewan. Literally, Sherwood Park is practically connected to Edmonton. It used to be a 20-minute drive from Edmonton to Sherwood Park. These massive build-outs of the ring roads, like the stony the trail road around Calgary, and then you've got the Anthony Henley around Edmonton. The largest industrial corridor in North America, from Calgary up to Fort McMurray, literally trillions of dollars being spent in building out the industrial lands to extract the oil from Alberta. You look at the potential growth in Alberta, and there's going to be there's 4 million in Alberta now, and 20 years ago there was 3. Well, they think that within there'll be 5 million in the next 10 years. So the growth is very rapid. Case in point, we see Edmonton is starting. The government's actually subsidizing for the housing crisis that's going on there. They're giving government grants of $26,000 to build basement suites, legalize the basements, and to allow housing for single mothers and the needs for people who have need for housing in Edmonton. Just amazing growth, just incredible. And of course, you've got the rental increases happening because of supply and demand and the housing squeeze, and you got decreased vacancies, and then of course increasing rents. So property purchase demand is at all-time highs because there's really not a lot of inventory left. What you've got happening is you see a lot of people building, and like X generation people moving into the downtown cores for their jobs, and also people who are really like the baby boomers that are improving the value of their home by just doing renovations. My girlfriend is an interior designer for a very prominent renovation. Actually, it's carpet, flooring. They do everything, tile, everything on the finishing of a home. They're the fastest growing, and their growth has been so high demand for what they're doing. They have to expand another warehouse just nearby, and the builders are now building like you've never seen before. Like there's probably 17 builders in this little town of 8,000 people that where I live, and they've built thousands of homes here in the last couple of years. So it's just incredible growth here in Alberta, and the writing's on the wall. So the wave is here, and it's coming, and it's more of it is happening. So basically, follow the money train. The money train is is basically from Calgary up to Fort McMurray. What we also have is, you're seeing the leading indicators and lagging indicators. Leading indicators, of course, is the gross domestic product, is the demand for goods and services. And 2006, it was a $20 billion budgets all throughout Alberta for money being spent in the province. This year, it's $263 billion earmarked, already in the bank, ready to be deployed into projects. So that's more than 10 times the amount of capital that's being invested in Alberta this year. And it's no accident that you have low unemployment and high migration and all that kind of stuff going on here in Alberta. But it's a renaissance that's going on. It's going to be not like the boom bust economy we knew before. It's going to be more of a long L-shaped recovery and steady growth for the next 25 years is what we're seeing. So now, oil sands, just the tar sands area north of Edmonton, they're expecting to be 600,000 jobs. Well, there's only maybe 250,000 jobs today in those regions, and so then you have so double the workforce going up there in the next 10 years. The average earnings is over 20% higher than anywhere else in all of Canada. Forget about North America because they're literally in bankruptcy. The entire state. Some states are in 25% unemployment, and there's some bad spots in Canada too. But we see incredible growth, consistent, sustainable population increase, and growth of wages and earnings in Alberta. And you have again the gross domestic product forecast for 2014 was 4.2, which is edging up from the previous year. The next 2 years, they're talking about how literally the population of red deer moving into Alberta or more. That's amazing, So with the gas fields that are happening, this is a picture of a hydrofracking frack job or a company I used to work with is got probably 20 trucks here. Each truck's worth about $2 million, and they're all connected to the wellhead, pumping sand and gel pollutant into the wellhead and stimulating that ground to extract the oil and gas from the ground. And then this is what they also do is nitrogen. These white trucks, tankers you'll see are this nitrogen that they also pump to stimulate the well, which is like putting dynamite underground. It's massive expansion of the sand and gas, puts it under higher pressure and creates a 700 times volume extraction from the ground. So needless to say, I was white collar. I was blue collar, then I went white collar, now back to blue collar. I got my Class 1 license a couple of years ago. Very excited, very wonderful to drive a $2 million truck around and work in the well field for 6-7 months of the year and well services industry. It's been a great experience, and I really enjoy the job. But the cool part is we get to fly some pretty travel in pretty cool high-end ways. This is a $5 million jet that flew us from Red Deer to Fort Nelson, which is just north of Fort St. John, about 4 hours drive. But we left Red Deer at 6:30 in the morning and arrived in Fort Nelson, which is about a 14-hour drive or even 13-hour drive from Red Deer. We got there an hour and 29 minutes. Then we were then escorted by a helicopter from there up to Horn River, which we did a job that, like the picture you saw there, to do a project for a big oil field company called Nexen. So this was an amazing experience for me, and I felt like a rock star there. And again, on my days off, continually going to conventions with the Real Estate Investment Network. I think everybody who's seriously involved in becoming financially independent needs to get an education on whatever it is. They need to study property management or study wealth management or investments of sort. And I've sold the farm on real estate. I think that real estate is the very best. The well-selected real estate is the very best investment that you can get into because you're in complete control of the land, the building, and tenancy, and so on. So this is talking about infinite returns because that's a whole different conversation about how you can make money in real estate. So we look at the baby boomers. Obviously, they're looking at trying to get ahead, and they've lost half their wealth in the last 10 years or since 2008 in the stock market. And there's some recovery, but there's another correction coming. We see all kinds of indications of overinflated prices in the market, and just the paper that's being printed by the Americans is just out of hand. It's circling back, and it's starting to go back into resources in Canada here. But again, this is just a good comparison to like the stock market over 10 years compared to 12 years to real estate. And so real estate's the decided winner on equity appreciation and safer investment, actually a low medium risk investment. Again, with the green energy movement, with gas fields, the northern BC has become big attention up there with the gas fields up there, building a pipeline from Fort St. John in the Peace River country all the way to the coast west in the Kitimat area. 4 or 5 major players: Exxon, Shell, I think Apache, and there's many other oil companies are building these liquid natural gas harbors that are going to move the oil and gas to China, to Japan, and they've already prepaid about $30 billion earmarked to be deployed to build this pipeline from the northern cities of BC to the coast there. And the thought is that if we're not going to sell it to the States is going to rape us on the southern side of the provinces through the Bakken region, because we don't have the pipelines, we don't have the infrastructure and the refineries down there. It's just shipped over the border, and they're getting it for $50 a barrel from us, or $60 a barrel, and selling Brent crude prices at 80. So they're just making billions and billions, if not coming into the trillions of dollars on the oil fields that we have here. Now the Keystone Pipeline, a lot of politics behind that, because it's all going to end up going down south and to China eventually anyway. But China is insatiable demand for our resources, and they're buying lands and companies up here to get this the gas from the north of BC here. So there's a big build out. The city population of Fort St. John and Dawson Creek would likely be doubled in the next 10 years just from the demand for the gas fields. There's over 150 years of supply of gas in the northern BC for China alone, which is unbelievable when you think about how much that would be. So, and it's a good thing. The clean energy movement is big, and it's a new day. This is the global economy. This is not like just exporting to United States and just having only one trade partner. Now we're a global village with a high demand for our resources here, and we get very great opportunity going forward in the future here. So again, if there's jobs and there's economy going, then case in point, it just stands to reason that you're going to see high demand for housing, and that's the kind of like the leading indicators for the future. If you had a crystal ball, is basically jobs, and then you have migration, and then you have need for housing. So this is a great example of just a modest investment of buying a house, 20% down, 25 years ago, and it's a great story of how you would have done over 20 years and on a real estate investment. It's a must-read article here. So then again, the cost of money is really not as much as most people think, as the lowest cost of borrowing is right now and available since the Great Depression. You get 3% interest rates. But if you had to buy a rental property at 5% cost of borrowing, after your tax deduction at a 40% tax rate, your real cost is only 3%. So it's definitely something to look into, is getting a line of credit on your home to buy rental properties for the new people moving into the province. So this is just showing that Alberta is top of the heap when it comes to population growth in all the provinces, income, and the vacancy rates lowest in all of Canada, and employment wage increases and so on. So this is a really good article. It's basically the financial drivers and the demographic understanding of why our province is going well, and just kind of like leading indicators to give you confidence, knowing that if you're going to invest in Alberta, it's not likely you're going to have the concerns you would have if you were investing anywhere else in real estate. Now, which kind of leads me to a little bit about the peripheral little towns around the major cities of Alberta. But Black Falls is a small town 8 minutes north of Red Deer, which is a small suburb of basically likely be connected to Red Deer. It is in the county of Lacombe, and it's you'll notice in maybe 100 years ago, when these little towns, they had to be about 14 minutes apart, because that's how long it took a day for a horse and buggy to carry a bushel of wheat from one town to another. So you have Red Deer, then you got Black Falls, and then Lacombe, and then you got Ponoka, and then you got Wetaskiwin, and then and so on. These towns are about 14, 15 kilometers apart. And Edmonton, again, the same thing with you got Edmonton, you got Sher Park, and you got Fort Saskatchewan, and you have Nisku, and it wasn't long ago, but 25 years ago, that I was traveling in South Edmonton around Ellerslie, and there was just an old dirt road that went across the highway. Now it's all completely built up, and you have these massive overpasses around the Henley area, and then Edmonton South is the airport is expanded, shut down downtown Edmonton, and all the lands from South Edmonton all the way into Nisku have just tripled in value. So there's a huge build out in all these little towns outside the major city. Black Falls, situated just north of Red Deer on Highway 2A, which was the old highway. You had to drive from Edmonton. You had to drive through Red Deer, but they had to build another highway to come across. So the little town is kind of nestled between these two major arteries, these highway. 45,000 cars going by a day, and that Tim Hortons picture I showed you earlier was the first Tim Hortons in the area, and it's one of the busiest Tim Hortons in Canada, as a matter of fact. It has 2 lanes to drive through it. So Black Falls, again, just north of Red Deer, small little towns like Innisfell, Sylvan Lake, they're just booming right now. Penhold, explosive growth. Lacombe, on the top growth cities in top 10 in Canada right now. But there was a bit of news on Black Falls in that most of the people that live in Red Deer, in the northern part of Red Deer, which is an industrial corridor, it's the well service capital of Canada. As a matter of fact, if you have to go to any place in North America outside of Red Deer to find something equivalent to like a Baker Hughes, a Schlumberger, or like a Trican Yard, you'd have to go to Texas to see the size of fleets of trucks that are employed by the well services industry that service the oil companies. So Red Deer is kind of sort of like the center of the universe. That being said, a lot of people that are supervisory positions in the oil field, they're having the young families that are coming up, the guys between the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, they're raising their kids in the small little towns. And the choice, the first choice of buying a house, brand new home, for a new well-serviced guy raising a family is Black Falls. And the news was that Black Falls, there was the biggest number of babies born in Black Falls than any other town in North America, and per capita of people, which also is good news that you have a baby boom going on here with the X generation. And then also people who live in Black Falls can drive into Red Deer in 8-9 minutes, and it takes them less time to drive from Black Falls into work than if they were to live in Red Deer. So that's one of the main reasons why Black Falls is a real hotspot right now. Black Falls had the largest number of building permits in the last couple months in the history of the whole central Alberta region. More building permits issued in Black Falls than anywhere else. So there's a building boom going on here. So I have to really emphasize the fact that I think I landed in one of the best locations in Alberta fast-growing little town. This is the city boundary of the town. Actually, it's a town, and these quarter sections of land that have not been developed yet, they've got area structure plans submitted with the city, with the town, to build thousands of homes in this region here and the boundaries of the Black Falls town. So it's quite an exciting thing happening here. Again, you'll see some slides here about the growth. In 1990, there was basically under 2,000 people here. Now there's 8,000 people living here. The growth compared to other cities, Black Falls is up 50%. The growth compared to Canada's 10% growth, and Alberta's 20% growth, where Black Falls again is 50%. So there's a higher percentage growth in the small villages comparatively in percentage growth than the bigger centers. And there's no surprise that the land is cheaper and people choose to live in a smaller village to keep their kids safe and out of trouble. Also, you'll see the sales prices of homes here averaging about $300,000, and they're edging up to about $330,000. The prices are gradually and steadily increasing. This is one thing that Red Deer has had going for it. It's a very stable economy. It's not like a boom-bust type of fluctuation. It's not a volatile price market. It's pretty steady as she goes based on construction costs. It's pretty reasonable to assume a 5% growth in the whole region overall over the last 30 or 40 years. So population, again, you see a hyper growth in the small towns like Black Falls, and potential for about 20,000 people living in this town in the next 8 to 10 years. So that's pretty awesome. Double population in the next 10 years. I'm all over that. So again, income is percentatively per capita higher income in the small town of Black Falls and all other regions of the Red Deer Central Alberta area, and also even higher than Central Alberta, being in Red Deer particularly, about 12% higher than per capita of all the cities in Edmonton. Then Black Falls actually a little higher than Red Deer, so it's kind of a high income zone. They have spent a lot of money on infrastructure here. There's some rumor of the super train going from Calgary to Edmonton. That's maybe some ways out into the future, but the evidence is very clear. They're building these beautiful facilities. A $16 million recreational facility here, state of the art. Then you have great opportunities for purchasing properties. This is a downtown apartment building that have a post office on the main floor, or a physiotherapist, and then you have a real estate office and a financial planning office, and cute little industrial building here like this would be about a couple $1 million, producing about $200,000 cash flow a year, which is still in the area. When you look at the cap rates of major cities, you might get 6, maybe 3 to 5 or 6% cap rate. Well, I'm looking at these little investments in this town here, storage businesses, little 8-plexes, 4-plexes, duplexes, getting 7, 8, 10% cap rate on the value of purchasing these. So the cash on cash return is massive opportunity, and you've got just incredible stories of growth all over. Joffrey, in case in point, is a $1 billion expansion. $500 million being earmarked for just wages alone to build out the Nova petrochemical plant out there, which is great news for people that live in Black Falls, or even people who want to live in the Red Deer area. They have starting wages of $40-$45 an hour. They can go out there and do as a carpenter, make a lot of money in the next couple of years to build that Joffrey plant out. So lots of great growth going on here in Alberta. In particular, I like townhomes, and I think townhomes are the real wave of the future. So what we have here is a project that we're working on. There's 13 duplex townhomes, and I'm looking at getting I can get these about below cost of building. Cost of building is about $150 square foot. I'm getting these about 1,300 square foot townhomes with the land, and they're all stratified. So you've got 13 buildings, which is they're duplexes. So there's 22 homes per building, 13 buildings, 26 townhomes. for about $230,000 a door, and average townhome selling for about $280 to $350 anywhere else in the region. So cash flow on these about $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a month depending on the condition, and cap rate on this is about 8%. I particularly have one here that I rent rooms to, and I get $600 per bedroom, and I think I'm under the market. With a fully furnished room, people are getting about $750 a month for a fully furnished room in the region. So I'm pretty much under the market values for my rents. So in a townhome, a 5-bedroom townhome, I'm renting 4 rooms and I'm living in one townhome myself. I'm getting $2,400 a month, and my cost of living in that townhome is about $1,000 a month. So I'm getting paid to live in my own home that I'm living in. And of course, it's a lot of work to put together the project to rent out your place, and it's a bit of a frustration if you get a bad person. But it took me about a year to get the basement finished, and then rent those rooms out. But now I've got guys that have been with me for a year and a half, 2 years, and I couldn't evict them out here because they're just too good. I mean, they are, number one, hardly ever here, so maybe 10, 15 days a month they're actually here. All non-smokers, all very ethical, not non-drinking kind of guys. They're occasionally you'll go out and have a party and hoop it up, but very respectful. Love the community. We're basically, again, as I mentioned, one of the fast-growing towns in North America, if not the fast-growing town in North America. But I think there's a lot more higher industrial zones like the Fort Saskatchewans of the world and the Niskus, and Calgary's got some incredible growth going up into the west there. But I like the central part because we're kind of sort of situated in a kind of a microcosm between white collar and blue collar, where there's polytechnical workers here, and the trades are the place to be right now. I mean, this is where the growth is happening, is in the trades. Welding, trucking, oil field services is where the next 10 years is going to be, in people who are in the industrial trades and transportation construction area. So my presentation is done. If you want to know more information about tax savings, we have some amazing projects that we're working on right now on getting about 50% of the taxes you paid, recovering that and reinvesting that in income properties for retirement. We're going to look at a lot of really exciting cash-on-cash returns where you actually invest maybe $50,000 and get your money back within 3 to 5 years, and then recirculate that money back into other investments that are at that time more possibly safer, or even, if you like, better returns. So thank you for listening to all this, and appreciate you looking into Wealthstyles and a little bit about the Alberta economy and what's going on and where the growth potentials are. Have a great day. Bye-bye.